So it's a 94 Jeep Cherokee. So I built almost everything on here
at his house. Hey, what's up guys? We're out here with Justin Wyche and his legendary Jeep Cherokee. You guys have asked for this thing over and over in the DMs, in the comments, and we're finally making this thing happen. We're gonna look over this bad boy that Justin actually built here at his house. What's up, buddy? Thank you so much for meeting us, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Tell us year, make, model, all that.
So it's a 94 Jeep Cherokee. Actually fairly rare because, well, some people say it's rare, some people don't, but it's a two-door. So most Jeep Cherokees you see are four doors. I got this because I really like the look and the style of having the big rear window and the big front doors. It also makes getting in and out of it way easier. And I mean, maybe makes the chassis a little stiffer.
So the two doors have a bigger door and a bigger back window. Yeah,
it's the same exact wheelbase, same overall size. The only difference is just a bigger front door. Like if it was a four door, the door would cut off about right about here. And then you have the rear door would come right to the wheel well. And then you'd have a shorter rear window and you wouldn't have this little fill piece in the back.
Okay. Is it actually different in length overall?
No, overall exactly the same wheelbase, same width, everything else is the same. It's just they changed the door, the side window and the door. And then it gives you way more space to put a bigger tire in here.
Okay.
These are 35s. Which,
oh, right. Yeah, because all this with the other door.
35s nowadays are little kids tires compared to freaking Darren running 40s on a Ranger. It looks like a toy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
RC car, yeah.
But when you're dealing with a small little XJ and you don't want to do a ton of sheet metal work, cutting everything out and trying to package it all, 35 is about as big as I think you can go while still maintaining a bunch of up travel.
I love this thing, dude. Like you said, it looks a little compact, but it looks, this gives me like the Dakar rally type vibes on this thing. Looks really cool.
That's kind of what I was going for. I wanted to keep it clean, and I liked rally growing up and I liked off-road, so I just wanted to build a clean vehicle that pretty much could do anything. Yeah. Granted, it's snowballed way more than I ever planned on it.
But, it's cool. It's pretty common. Well, take us through the front suspension, man. All right. When you say you built this thing, you built this thing.
So I built almost everything on here. The front bumper, I didn't build. I purchased this, but I have heavily modified it. It is not original. This is a Sato Fab bumper. I saw it a long time ago. I was thinking about building one similar, but then I realized they were still for sale and so affordable. I was like, why not? So I purchased it. And then I actually added on these light bar tabs that I made myself. Okay. They're pretty simple. Just cut them out really quick and easy and clean them up and then welded them on. There's actually, that comes with these 3 light bar tabs originally, but I didn't want to do 3 pods. I like the slim look of the LED light bar.
Right.
And then
so you could have mounted like 3 Okay.
Yeah, you could do 3 7-inch probably lights would have fit good, but I didn't want to block the grill. Jeeps they have such a short radiator. They're known for having overheating issues, so I didn't want to contribute to that issue by putting a big light blocking the airflow in. That's why I also have these vents on here to try and get as much heat out of the engine bay as I can.
Right. And you put these on here?
Yeah, so these are actually from a boat. So these are for like a boat engine compartment, and I had a different style that's a little more aggressive when I had my old Jeep. And then with this one, I wanted to go with similar style or similar performance, but a different style. So it's a little bit cleaner and smoother look, but still vents a lot of heat out of the hood. You can see when the fans are on, you can literally see the heat coming out of the hood vents.
And then you got these
These are aero catch latches, so they're really low profile, so they don't block any air, and they're really easy and convenient to use. So you just press the button, flip it up, and it retracts the pin. So you can see the pin going through, and then it locks it in, and then you unlock it and unpin it.
Right on.
One thing I wanted to point out, which is a little bit baller for a Jeep Prerunner, this is a legit carbon fiber skid plate.
Oh, okay.
So there aren't even many luxury Prerunners or trophy trucks that have a carbon fiber skid plate. At my last job, we had an in-house carbon fiber guy, and they wanted to test how strong a skid plate was. being carbon fiber. I'm the only one with a working off-road vehicle that actually beats on it. So we built one for me. I was thinking we were gonna build it pretty thin, because carbon fiber, you can make it thin and it's super strong. Well, the guy made it as thick as my aluminum and made it a 3D core. So there's a foam insert in here that gives it a 3D shape, because whenever you make a third dimension to an object, it makes it way more rigid. So this thing, I'm pretty sure, is bulletproof. I don't think I'll ever break this.
That's insane.
It probably makes the bumper itself way stronger.
Dude, that's crazy. I've never heard of that.
But you would hurt yourself trying to kick this thing. It's
oh my
insane.
God. I guess since we're down here,
Okay,
let's hop into
so
this suspension.
This is the what makes this thing more unique. It's two-wheel drive, which you don't see, but it's still a solid axle. So this is actually the same axle tube that you would get in the four-wheel drive. It's the same axle width, everything is the same, except there is no pumpkin that would hold a gear set right here.
Right.
So that is key for going fast, because it cuts down on unsprung weight and gives me tons of extra space.
What's unsprung weight?
So unsprung weight, so there's two different weights. There's sprung weight and unsprung weight. Sprung weight is the weight of the vehicle, which is on top of the springs, and unsprung weight is the axles, wheels and tires, brakes, steering, everything that is beneath the springs. Now, the more unsprung weight you have, the harder it is to control that axle and all the wheel travel movement, and the more feedback you get into the body, because you're trying to dampen that heavy axle moving up and down, which is why typically when you see Ultra 4 cars, old solid axle Ultra 4 cars, they didn't work so good in the desert. The front end was kind of bouncing and it looked like a rough ride. This almost works more like a two-wheel drive than it does a four-wheel drive, just because that axle's so light, I can pick it up by hand pretty easily.
Okay.
And then it also, because of there's no pumpkin here, I can have tons of space for my track bar and steering. Not that I actually have tons of space, but I have way more than I would if I had a pumpkin.
Right.
To get this axle to bump up another 7 inches from where it is right here at ride height. I think it's 7 or 8 inches of up travel from ride height.
So what made you do this instead of like arms or beams or?
Again, the snowball factor.
Okay.
So when I originally built this axle is pretty much, I haven't modified it much since I originally built it. When I originally built this, I just wanted it to be just a fun little daily driver that I could go off-road in, have a little fun in. And then I realized that a lot of things were damaged from previous owners on this thing. Things were beat, like the steering box was about to tear out of the frame, and it was super jankily fixed. There was angle iron and sheet metal screws and a whole bunch of other crap. So then I started repairing more and going further down the build, and then it kept snowballing, and then it was like, then I trust the axle to make sure it didn't bend, because I knew I was going to have some fun with it and beat on it, and it wasn't too much work.
Right.
But like at this point, I'm so invested in the solid axle, and it works
why not make it
pretty
work?
well. It works pretty well as it is.
Yeah.
It would be so much work to go for like I-beam swap it, or like, let alone A-arm swap it. That'd be insane. So
right.
I'm pretty sure this is how it's going to stay. I'm just going to fine tune it from here and try and make it as good as it can be for what it is.
If you guys have seen any videos of this thing in action, you can see that it does work, you know, and this guy pounds on this thing, so. I see you're running a spring and a bypass.
So yeah, I kept it traditional to the Cherokee style, which is a coil spring and a shock external of each other.
Okay.
It uses this kind of guide rod for the spring. Now I'm doing something different, which is I have a dual spring setup. I actually have a coil spring divider in here from like a 2.0 Fox shock.
Okay.
And then I have my tender spring up top because I needed a stiffer spring rate. This is a 240-pound spring rate.
What's a tender spring?
Tender spring, essentially what it does is when I go to full droop, this spring doesn't have enough travel to keep pushing the axle down.
Okay.
So at full droop, it would be loose, which isn't good. It doesn't push the axle down, which you need to get the full travel and to have the rebound work.
It keeps the shock in place,
So
right?
this tender spring pushes down on the main spring and keeps tension on both and keeps the spring from unseating and keeps pushing the axle down at full droop.
And then this bypass, it's a 2.5?
Yeah, King 2.5 Prerunner series, not a race series, but a 2.5 triple bypass shock, which I have very closed out, as you can see right now. A lot of people comment about, what is this thing? Why is this red thing floating in your spring? So this is actually what's called I call it a progressive bump stop, but it's called a coil insert, and it's essentially a closed cell foam that acts as a bump stop, and it floats in the spring. So when this goes to full compression, it first starts hitting that and slows down on the coil spring insert. So that is acting as my progressive bump stop. A lot of people cut out this coil spring guide and put a 2.0 like 4-inch travel bump stop in there, hydraulic bump stop.
Okay.
That's a lot pricier of an option to go with, so I went with this coil spring insert just to save money, and it seems to work great for me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so.
I mean, you don't. I don't feel it bottom out really. It's a pretty plush feeling at bump for how stiff this thing is.
And then this guy right here, this anti-rock.
Yeah. So sway bars, very important. There's a lot of Prerunners, lots of Rangers that don't have sway bars front or rear. Granted, it's harder in the front, especially with I-beams, to put a sway bar on there, but it's really critical in making the car have a really well-balanced handling characteristic. Three-wheeling looks cool on video, but...
Yes, it does. It does.
It does look cool.
But let's get that big butt in
but
there.
It's not fast. It's not fast at all. So if you want to go fast and you want to have a very well-handling car, you want to have sway bars front and rear, which this does. And I'm using Curry anti-rock sway bars. This is a bigger 850 diameter coils torsion bar, and the rear is the 750 torsion bar.
Okay. And when you say 750, you want to explain to the viewers what that means?
Sorry, I have that backwards.
No worries.
The front is the 750 and the 8 is the 850. So it's just the diameter. So 750 is 0.75 inch. It's a 3/4 inch diameter of the shaft going across. So that's, the bigger you go, the stiffer it is to resist twist. And then the smaller, obviously, the easier it is to twist.
Okay.
So,
and then what that does is, like, if you guys are going fast, right, and straight, no sway bar, probably not too big of a problem. Probably okay. Might even do better in some senses going straight. Yeah, but when you're turning, and you're railing turns and you're trying to keep that momentum,
you want to dive into a big rutted turn, and you don't want the body to lean all the way over and want to make you roll through that turn.
That's what keeps you down, right? So it literally just plants you. So that's the importance of running a sway bar. Anything else in the front?
Under the hood and stuff right now, we're up here?
Sure, why not?
All right, so 4 liter. This is the workhorse. These things are bulletproof, well known. You can beat the absolute crap out of them. Granted, they don't make much power, but they're not bad for what they are, and you can beat them to living hell and back. So these make about 190-ish horsepower stock and 230 foot-pounds of torque. I've done everything that's quick and easy on this without actually going internally into the motor.
Reliable factor.
Yeah, and save time and money. I don't want to go that far into it at this point.
Right.
But it has a better, this is a rebuilt motor. It probably has less than 30,000 miles on it. I blew up the last one, go figure. Wasn't actually the motor's fault. I had another part fail that stopped the oil pump from spinning, and then no oil pressure is really bad when you're at 5,000 RPM.
Right. Yeah, oil, that doesn't sound very nice.
The oil was a very pretty shimmery color when I drained it.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So this has a better intake manifold, bigger injectors. It has 1.7 ratio roller rocker arms.
Okay.
Stock are 1.6, and they're cast non-rollers. So these actually have little roller bearings on them, and it makes them where they are more efficient. They don't bind as much. They don't make less heat, and they're stiffer. So you get actually more of the ratio is actually acting on the valves and everything. So
right on. Between
those, I have a good flowing exhaust, good flowing intake, and I have a tuner on here to actually tune the fueling and timing. I mean, I haven't dynoed it, so these are just theoretical numbers, but maybe I'm at 210 to 220 horse. Okay. And maybe up to like 250 or so foot-pounds of torque.
Well, that's not bad with these 35s. And it seems like a lightweight kind of car, you know?
It's probably right around 4,000 pounds.
Right, okay.
So it is fairly light.
Right, compared to like, yeah. I mean, I think some of these other guys like 5,500, 6,500.
I mean, Rangers these days are that much.
Huge. Yeah. Very cool. All right, man. Well, dude, so that's good to hear. And then these motor mounts and stuff.
Yeah. So these motor mounts, there's companies like Brown Dog Racing make some of these reinforced motor mounts. These aren't those. I forget the actual brand of these, but they utilize as many mounting bosses on the motor to make it as strong as it possibly can. Because it originally just uses 3 bolts, and those are known for breaking the casting off on the block.
Okay.
This one uses like 8. So it's way stronger because it spreads the load out through way more mounting points. And you could actually, even if you had stock motor mounts and you broke them off, you can buy these motor mounts and put them on and still be able to use that block.
Oh, nice.
Even though you broke those, because it uses so many other mounting locations.
Nice, nice. I think that's one thing that's kind of overlooked a lot with a lot of builds is motor mounts. So freaking important, so incredibly important. That's one of the first things to kind of go, right?
I have a friend who had a Tacoma. He literally collapsed the motor mount, and his engine was leaning over on his engine cage.
So that's something you guys want to check out. If you guys have been going hard lately, check out those motor mounts. There's a lot of companies that offer a lot of different types of motor mounts that are reliable and not too expensive. Cool, man. Anything else up here?
Yeah, so another thing that sets this apart from your normal XJs is the steering box. It's hard to actually see, but if you look down in here, you can see it.
You
can
get to it. There you go.
So
you might be able to.
That you can see a little bit of it, but you can kind of see the billet cap on there. That is a Power Steering Solutions small bore trophy truck box.
Nice.
So Charlie at Power Steering Solutions set me up with that box. It's expensive, but it's worth it because I should not break it. And I also have a RAM assist on here to help with the steering. It's a packaging nightmare, but it all fits. And it makes a world of difference for not having a bunch of input coming through the steering wheel. I can go through rough chatter, and instead of before where the wheel, you could feel all the chatter
like
through
dancing
the wheel.
side,
Yeah, you don't feel that anymore. You can just hold on the wheel and cruise, and it just goes straight, and you don't get all that jarring input through the steering wheel. It also takes a lot of load off the box having the RAM assist, so it makes your steering box live a lot longer. Helps the sector shaft on the box and just helps everything in general. Helps making steering these big 35s a lot easier if you can do a tight bind. It just makes a lot of things better. But of course, you can't do that without modifying the power steering pump. So this power steering pump has been bored out and had the pressure increase. Granted, I did it all myself, so I don't know if I'd recommend doing it yourself, but if you have the availability, give it a try. Do some research first though, so you don't hopefully screw up your power steering pump or have a leak, because power steering fluid is very flammable. So make sure you do it right and don't have a big leak, because if it goes under your header, that's a fire you don't want to put out.
I see you changed these guys out.
Yes, these are just these are eBay, good old eBay LED headlights.
Heck yeah.
They're way brighter than stock. They put out a bunch of light. They piss off some people, but
they
work
cool.
great.
Well,
they look cool, and they do work way better than stock.
Heck yeah, very cool. And then you got these pods over here.
Yeah, so those are for. You see how they're pointed at such an outward angle?
Yeah.
So that is so you can actually see through turns. A lot of people put a ton of light all facing forward, but that's great for going straight through the desert. But what happens when you come to a turn? Your lights are pointed straight when you're turning left or right. They're not pointing where you need to go. So that's why I have these lights as cornering lights turned out, so you can actually see through those corners.
And then you got this big old freaking bar up here.
Yeah. Man. It's bright, but I realized that I'm outrunning what a normal LED light bar puts out as far as length goes, length of the beam. This puts out a ton of light, but that's not really what I need anymore. I have enough light as it was before, and I put this on hoping they would get more range out of it, but unfortunately I just need either to go with just a different style light that actually, I want to keep it LED to keep all the heat down and the wattage down and everything, but I need to go with a different style lens or housing or something to actually get more beam distance.
Okay. And then what mounts are these? Or
these are the cleanest mounts I could find for an XJ.
Okay.
They look great.
They look cool.
They look awesome. The company name, guys, Brofab. It's a bit strong.
Yeah.
It's a bit strong.
Well, all right. Hey, dude. Brofab. Pretty nice.
Yeah.
Looking pretty good, dudes.
They fit good and they work good, but
the
name is a bit strong.
Heck yeah. So we got the motor, we got the front end. Let's head over to the back, and then we'll hop inside this guy.
Rear bumper, I did actually make this completely myself.
Okay.
Unlike the front, no one makes a tubular style rear bumper that I liked. So I actually made this one completely myself
Nice.
from scratch.
Nice, dude.
It actually sleeves into, it has tubing right here. You can kind of see the remnants of it, but it sleeves into the body. And then I have 3 large 1/2 by 13 bolts that bolt up into it and secure that in. And then I have another 4 bolts on a plate on the outside that bolts it to the chassis forward. So it's bolted in 2 directions to the body.
Nice. So in case you're hit from behind, or you're
Yeah.
kind of coming in a little silly.
Yeah, or
from
if you drop it on a rock or something.
or you're slap wheeling whoops.
Or slap wheeling whoops, yeah. Hopefully I don't get that high up in the front, because that would be scary.
Wow, man. And dude, I absolutely love the way you put this fuel cell in
Yeah.
here. It looks so flush and badass.
Yeah, thanks,
Love it,
man.
dude.
It's
Love it.
it was a bit of a pain to fit this in there because this is a big fuel cell.
Yeah.
So I had to cut lots of stuff to make it fit, and you want to get it up as high as possible because otherwise the further this hangs down, the easier it is to hit with something, and
Right.
you don't want to do that because it's an expensive fuel cell.
What size is this fuel
It's
cell?
a Jazz Jeep Speed 32-gallon fuel cell.
Oh,
so
nice.
it's actually designed to be used on these Jeeps.
Okay.
But it does take modifications to actually fit. Pushed back further than stock. Normally the gas tank wouldn't be back through here.
Okay.
There was a piece of sheet metal in front of this that was had the stock tank pressed up against, but I had to cut that out of the way and then cut a bunch of stuff above the gas tank to get it up as high as possible.
Okay.
And then I made these straps, and I put in this fuel cell after I put the bumper. I built the bumper when I first built the Jeep, and then I just recently put this fuel cell in here. And so I just used the bumper as strap mounting locations for
Okay.
the actual fuel cell.
How do you feel about the way the ride is now with that gas tank back there?
I made a lot of big changes at once, but one of the reasons why this thing likes to keep the front end so high, I'm pretty sure, is because I have a lot of weight in the back. With this big fuel cell and the spare in the back, it definitely helps keep weight back. I don't have the same mentality as a lot of people do, where they try and put as much weight as physically possible in the back. I like a more neutral with a just slight rearward balance to keep the front end high, but that way you have more traction on the front tires when you go to turn. Because I like a car that I can rail through turns just as fast as I go through the desert.
Like that guy over there.
Yeah.
Like the track car.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where this comes from, the translation
Yes,
into it. Okay.
yes.
Right on.
So here you can see my lower link mounts. These are, this whole link kit is from Rough Stuff, and it's a DIY link kit. I did a 3-link with panhard bar, so
Okay.
it's technically a 4-link, but in a non-triangulated 4-link way.
Okay.
So you have your 2 lower links, which come out at about a 5-degree angle to be similar to how you'd set up a normal triangulated 4-link, and then
Okay.
it has this one upper link, and this is what controls the actual pinion angle and how the axle cycles.
Okay.
But then we'll go behind it, and you can see where I have my panhard bar, which goes from the frame to the axle, and that's what centers the axle in the vehicle.
Okay.
And then I also have, you can see the big cross tube up there going to the panhard bar mount.
Yeah.
I didn't have that when I first built this, and that was a big mistake.
Okay.
The second time I took this out in Cal City, I tore the frame where the track bar was mounted. I almost completely tore that off. The only thing that held it on was the overlay plate that I had on the outside of the frame rail. So I got back, cut it all up, and did a whole bunch of reinforcement work, including that tube. I rebuilt the frame from the inside on that side, and then just did a whole bunch more reinforcement work to make sure I didn't have anything like that happen again.
It takes the trial and error to get this thing to work right, man. And I mean, you're doing it right. That's just what happens. It's the name of the game. You kind of just break it along the way and find those weak points to make it stronger. But
it's a single drive shaft because it just comes from the transmission. Okay. So it's not actually a 2-piece like you'd see on a Ranger or like a Chevy 1500. It's just a single piece drive shaft, but it has a slip yoke in the drive shaft, which you normally don't see. I had to weld on a stud into the output of my transmission so I could bolt the yoke into the transmission so it wouldn't move, to be able to utilize a stronger spline in the back of the drive shaft, because I actually stripped my last drive shaft out when it had the original slip yoke in the trans. So I had to go to this style to be strong enough to handle my driving style with 35s.
Right.
And then this is a Ford 8.8 out of an Explorer 31 spline 8.8 that has been thoroughly gone through. It now has 571 gears in it, spool, Yukon shafts, and a C-clip eliminator kit. So this is what most people would refer to as a super 8.8.
Okay.
It's about as strong as you can physically make one, especially with the truss work that I've done to it.
Looks solid, dude.
It's built to be pushed as hard as I push it.
Hell yeah, man. That is sick. Man, I didn't realize how much has gone into this thing. This guy has really thought it out, man. You're doing a great job. I mean,
Thanks.
I mean,
one other thing I wanted to go over while we were
Yeah.
kind of under this area.
Sure.
A lot of people ask me about these drop brackets. So most people you'll see on an XJ, they run long arms, which is a much longer control arm, which would mount right around this location, right where the transmission crossmember is.
Okay.
And a lot of people ask me why I'm still short armed. Well, I originally built it this way because, again, it was just supposed to be a fun little vehicle, and this was the most cost-effective method for me to get my control arm angles properly set up. But now that I'm so invested in it and it works as well as it does, there's no reason for me to change it. And a lot of people would think a short arm wouldn't work well, but to me and what I've experienced, control arm angle is more important than length. So there's a broomstick test that you can do. If you hold the broomstick really short and you have it at a steep angle and you try and push it over a crack, it's going to catch on that crack. Now if you make it longer but you still have the same angle, it's going to want to go over it easier. But if you bring that broomstick handle flat, it will super easily, almost no matter what the length is, be able to bump up over that crack without pushing much force back into your hand. So that's essentially what's happening here. Because it's a solid axle, it's essentially like that broomstick hitting things head on. And when you have a steep angle on the control arm, it wants to push that force back into the chassis. When you get it flatter, it wants to push it up, making the suspension work way better.
what a great analogy, man. I'm learning today, bro. That's good. Do you ever have any issues with clearance?
These do get close to the ground, but I don't do rock crawler stuff, so
Okay.
I don't have issues with it. And these are built for doing rock crawler stuff. They're 1/4 inch thick. They are super strong.
So if for
and
some reason you do come into contact,
they
it's going to hold
should
up.
survive totally fine.
Hell yeah.
These are bolt-on originally, and I have welded everything on because bolt-on does not work when you go fast through the desert. You're hitting shit hard,
Yeah.
and like stuff likes to crack and break, so everything has been reinforced and welded on solid. So it still has bolts, but they're kind of more for just show and to fill holes
Yeah.
than anything else. Every bracket on this vehicle is welded on solid now.
Right on. All right, dude. So take us to the back of this thing.
All right.
Oh, this is wonderful. Well, that was pretty wild.